My name is Claire Matthews. I am 36 years old, and I thought I knew everything that was happening in my daughter's life. I was wrong about that. My daughter's name is Lily. She is 8 years old. She has red hair that she refuses to brush properly, a gap between her two front teeth that the dentist says will close on its own, and a collection of erasers shaped like food, tiny rubber pizzas and sushi rolls and ice cream cones that she keeps in a pencil case her grandmother gave her and treats with the seriousness of a curator managing a national collection. She talks. That is the most important thing to understand about Lily. She talks. She's always talked. From the moment she could form sentences, she has provided a running commentary on the world. What she noticed, what she thought, what confused her, what she found funny, what she disagreed with, and why. Bedtime in our house has never been a 5-minute affair. It is a negotiation, a debrief, a philosophical discussion, a recap of every significant and insignificant event of the preceding 16 hours. I thought I knew what was happening with her because she told me things. She did not tell me about lunch. Her school is a 20-minute drive from our house. It is a regular elementary school, brick building, painted hallways, a gymnasium that smells of floor wax and rubber, a cafeteria with long folding tables, and the particular acoustic quality of several hundred children all deciding to be loud at the same time. Lily has gone there since kindergarten. She is in 3rd grade now. She has known most of her classmates for 3 years. I dropped her off every morning. I picked her up every afternoon. I asked, "How was your day?" She answered. She told me about lessons, about her teacher Mrs. Okafor, who gives gold stars for creative answers, and whose earrings Lily considers the most interesting earrings in the school. About a boy in her class named Theo, who can burp the alphabet, which she finds both disgusting and impressive. About the book they were reading. About the argument she'd had with her friend Maisie over whether a hot dog was a sandwich. She talked. I listened. I thought, she is fine. She is happy. She has friends. She is Lily. She has always been Lily, which is to say, impossible not to like. The photo came on a Tuesday in February. I was at work. I am an occupational therapist at a rehabilitation center. I spend my days helping people relearn the ordinary physical mechanics of their lives after injury or illness. And it is work that requires attention and patience and the ability to sit with someone else's frustration without absorbing it. I am, professionally, a person who pays attention to the people in front of me. I did not see what was in front of me at home. The message came from a woman named Diane. Her son Marcus is in Lily's class. I know Diane the way you know the parents of your child's classmates. By sight, by first name, through brief exchanges at school events, through the group chat that operates as a low-level information feed about field trips and supply lists, and whether school is canceled tomorrow. We are not close. We have never had coffee. She is a pleasant woman who wears her hair in a high bun and always seems slightly rushed. Her message said, "Hi, Claire. I'm not sure if I should send this, but I feel like if it were my kid, I would want to know. I took this at pickup yesterday. I hope everything is okay." The photo was of the school cafeteria. Diane had taken it through the glass partition that separates the cafeteria from the front hallway. The partition parents sometimes stand at during the lunch hour if they're volunteering or picking up early. She'd taken it, she told me later, because Marcus had pointed through the glass and said, "That's Lily. She always sits there." In the photo, my daughter was sitting at the far end of a long cafeteria table, alone. Her red hair was in a ponytail. She was wearing the blue sweater with the stars on it that she had asked me to buy because it looked, she said, like the night sky. She had her lunchbox open in front of her. She was eating a sandwich with both hands and looking at the table. The table around her was empty, not slightly sparse. Empty. The nearest cluster of children was at least 6 seats away. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the rehabilitation center and looked at that photograph for a long time. Then I called my husband, Tom. He didn't answer. He was in a meeting. I texted him, "Call me when you can. It's not an emergency, but it's important." Then I sat there for another minute with the photograph on my phone screen and felt something cold and very specific move through me. Not panic. Something worse than panic. The particular feeling of realizing that something has been happening without your knowledge, and that the fact of your not knowing does not mean it hasn't been happening, and that the absence of information is not the same as the absence of a problem, and that you have been confusing the two. She ate lunch alone, I thought. She comes home every afternoon and talks to me for 45 minutes, and she has not said a single word about eating lunch alone. That evening, after dinner, I did something I had never done before. I did not ask Lily how her day was. I sat down next to her on her bed while she was organizing her eraser collection, arranging them by food group, she informed me, because the previous arrangement by color was aesthetically pleasing but logistically flawed. And I said, "Can I ask you something?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Who do you sit with at lunch?" She didn't look up from the erasers immediately. She moved a tiny rubber croissant from the bread category to the pastry category, which she had apparently decided needed to be its own group. Then she looked up at me. She said, "I just sit wherever there's space." I said, "And is there usually space near your friends?" She looked at the croissant. She said, "It depends." I said, "Lily, I'm not asking to get anyone in trouble. I'm asking because I want to understand. Who do you sit near at lunch?" She was quiet for a moment that felt very long. Then she said, "I sit at the end because it's easier. I can eat faster and then I go to the library. Mrs. Petrov lets me come to the library during lunch if I want. She lets me help organize the returns. I like it." I said, "How long have you been doing that?" She thought about it. She said, "Since October, I think. Maybe the end of September." I said, "Why did you start in October?" She picked up a rubber sushi roll, put it down, picked it up again. She said, "There was a thing with Maisie. We stopped sitting together, and then I didn't really know where to sit, so I started sitting at the end, and then it was just easier to go to the library." I said, "What was the thing with Maisie?" And then my daughter, who talks, who has always talked, who provides commentary on everything, told me a story she had not told me over the course of 4 months, of afternoon pickups and bedtime conversations and dinners and car rides and weekends and every other opportunity the ordinary architecture of our daily life provides. In September, Maisie had started a new friendship with a girl named Brooke, who had transferred from another school. Brooke was from somewhere else, a bigger city, a more sophisticated set of references, a wardrobe that Lily described as being very clean, which I understood to mean intentional in a way that 8-year-olds can sense without being able to name. Brooke had decided, within her first 2 weeks, on the social geography of the class. And the social geography of the class, as Brooke defined it, did not include Lily. It was not dramatic. That is the part that makes it hardest to see from the outside. There was no confrontation, no name-calling, nothing a teacher would have caught or addressed. What there was, instead, was a series of small redirections. Maisie saving a seat that turned out to be for someone else. a conversation that closed when Lily approached. A birthday party invitation that everyone in the group seemed to have received except Lily. The specific silence of being near people who are deliberately not including you, which is different from being ignored, is worse than being ignored because it requires active attention to maintain. Lily had processed all of this quietly, the way some children process things that hurt too much to examine directly, by moving away from the source, by finding alternatives, by constructing a parallel life that did not require the thing that had been taken away. The library, at lunch, Mrs. Petrov, and the returned books. A routine she had built out of the wreckage of the previous one, so complete and self-sufficient that she had almost convinced herself it was fine. Almost. I said, "Lily, why didn't you tell me?" She looked at her erasers. She said, "I didn't want you to be sad about it." I sat on her bed and looked at my 8-year-old daughter, who had been eating alone at the end of a cafeteria table for 4 months and had not told me because she didn't want me to be sad. And I felt something break open in my chest that I cannot describe precisely, except to say that it was the specific grief of understanding that your child has been protecting you. She was protecting me. From her own pain, I said, "Sweetheart, I need you to listen to me. Your job is not to protect me from being sad. My job is to make sure you're okay. Those are the jobs. We don't swap them." She looked at me. I said, "Are you okay?" She thought about it for a long time, with the seriousness she brings to the eraser categories. Then she said, "I think I'm okay, but I think I've been a little lonely. A little lonely." I held my daughter and I did not cry in front of her, which was the hardest thing I have done in recent memory. I saved that for the hallway, where Tom was waiting because he had heard everything through the half-open door. And he held me for a moment, with his hand on the back of my head, and neither of us said anything because there was nothing useful to say. The next morning I emailed Mrs. Okafor. I did not email Maisie's parents. I did not email Brooke's parents. I had thought about both options for most of the night, running the scenarios, considering the outcomes, trying to predict what would help and what would make things worse. I had concluded that what Lily needed was not a confrontation, because a confrontation would make her the child whose mother called, which would solve nothing and add something new to carry. What she needed was a door. Mrs. Okafor was exceptional. "I want to say this clearly," she replied within 2 hours. She said she had not known about the lunch situation. Children are very good at keeping certain things invisible to adults, and that she would address it in a way that didn't single Lily out. She implemented what she called a flexible seating arrangement for the week. Different seats each day, assigned by her, mixing up the social clusters that had calcified since September. She also spoke to the class generally about what it looks and feels like to be welcoming. Not about Lily, not about anyone specifically, but about the habit of noticing who is nearby and whether they seem included. She told me this afterward in a follow-up email, and she added, "Lily is one of the most thoughtful children I have ever had in a class. Please tell her that Mrs. Okafor thinks she's extraordinary," I told her. Lily received this information with the composure of someone accustomed to receiving accurate data. She said, "I know, but thank you." Things did not immediately become perfect. Maisie and Lily did not simply resume their friendship. Brooke remained Brooke. Social architectures at the age of 8, I have learned, do not dismantle in a week. But slowly, over the weeks after Mrs. Okafor's intervention, over the remainder of the school year, things shifted. Lily made a new friend named Priya, who had also been on the periphery of the Brooke configuration and had, in her own quiet way, been navigating similar geography. They met at the library during lunch. Mrs. Petrov introduced them over a shared interest in a graphic novel series. They discovered they lived 6 blocks from each other. By spring, they were eating lunch together every day. By summer, Priya was the person Lily talked about at pickup. Priya's opinions on things. Priya's family's dog, who was enormous and good-natured and named after a philosopher for reasons Lily found both confusing and excellent. Priya's collection of pressed flowers, which Lily considered a kindred collecting spirit operating in a different medium. I found out about the lunch situation because another mother sent me a photograph. A woman I barely knew, who had no obligation to send it, who could easily have decided it wasn't her business. I think about Diane often. I think about the small courage of sending that message, not knowing how it would be received, not knowing what the situation was, deciding that if it were her child, she would want to know. I would want to know. I did want to know. I want to say something to any parent watching this who is thinking, my child talks to me. I would know. I thought that too. I was wrong. Not because Lily was hiding something from malice or fear. She was hiding it out of love. The generous and heartbreaking instinct of a child who has decided that her pain is something she can manage herself, and that the people she loves most don't need to carry it. Watch for the thing they don't tell you. Ask the second question. Ask, who do you sit with at lunch? Ask it specifically. Ask it out loud. Name the room, the table, the seat. Ask until you know. Last week, Lily came home and told me that Priya's pressed flower collection now has over 60 specimens, and that Priya is thinking of starting a section for flowers that don't technically exist in nature, which she will illustrate herself. She told me about this for 22 minutes. She had opinions about the methodology. She had counter-proposals. She talked. I listened. I knew this time that the talking was the whole picture. If this story reached you, if you watched all the way to here, please hit that like button and subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. Drop your location in the comments. USA, UK, Canada, Australia, wherever you're watching from. I read every single one. Tell me, has your child ever kept something from you to protect you? I'd love to know I'm not alone. See you in the next one.